Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Gyapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Atpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva, Tvameva Vedya Ravinam Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunatu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So who has come in?
This is Sheila. I'm staying at my sister's place.
Oh, hi,
Yeah.
Sheila.
Hi.
I couldn't see you,
Yes.
but you obviously had the code.
I got it from midnight, I think. Yeah.
All right, well, welcome to our Vivekachudamani class. There are books here. If you do you have one?
I do.
Okay. And I think everybody knows the chants. A little bit of background of the text. Scholars date Shankara to 788 to 820 of the Common Era. We have trouble with this because there's so much literature that he's written, supposedly, that there's just no way one person could have written it all, and him only being 32 years of age. So many works may be attributed to him that were written by his disciples. It really doesn't matter. This is one of his most famous texts. Vivekachudamani means the crest jewel of discrimination. And what Shankara has done in this text is he's drawn from the Upanishads, he's drawn from the Gita. I think he either drew from Yoga Vasishta or an earlier text from which Yoga Vasishta was derived. Yoga Vasishta is probably about the same era as Shankara. But he's compiled it in a way where it's linear, meaning we start with the most basic ideas and practices, and it continues to progress and advance. And I like to say that if you do everything that Shankara suggests, mind I do not say read everything Shankara wrote. Do everything Shankara suggests. You could virtually guarantee self-realization. It's that powerful. In the Chinmaya mission, in the ashram in Mumbai, where they have the 2.5-year brahmachari training course, Swamiji would have an acharya, a teacher, come and teach that entire course. But at the end of the course, he would have all the brahmacharis come up to Siddhabari, that was the ashram up in the foothills of the Himalayas, and he would always teach Vivekachudamani himself. And it was an intensive retreat. I think it was 6 or 8 weeks long, 3 or 4 classes a day, I can't remember. And delegates would come from all over the world, and I had the great fortune to study this text with him personally in 1988. So it's great, great joy to get it directly from him. So this is a little background on the text. Do we have any questions about Shankara or the text itself before we dive right into it? Puneet has offered to help us out. So would you start with the Mangalam, the salutation at the beginning?
Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tama Gocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. My salutations to Sri Sadguru Govinda, who is of the nature of bliss absolute, who can be known only through the import of the essence of Vedanta, and who is beyond the reach of the known instrument of perception.
So, as many texts do, he starts out with a salutation to his guru. His guru was a fellow named Govindapada. Govindapada was a student of Gaudapada. Many of you may be familiar with him. He's the one who did the very famous gloss, a commentary. It's called a Karika on the Mandukya Upanishad. I think someone said he's also the compiler of the Brahma Sutras, but I'm not sure about that. That's the lineage. So, as is frequently the case in Vedanta literature, the first thing that is said is the most important and the subtlest. So if you can grasp what's in the first shloka, shloka means a verse. That's fine, you can now go home. So let's pull it apart bit by bit. So it starts off like you think it would. My salutations to my Sat Guru, meaning he's not an astrology teacher. He doesn't teach dance. So Shilpa, when she goes and talks to her dance teacher, that's a guru. The guru is his teacher. Sat Guru is a teacher of truth and existence. Now let's take a look at this word guru. The literal meaning, I think, what you told me, Puneet, it means heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But another etymology that is found is gu and ru. Gu means what is hidden or covered, obscure. So the guru is that which uncovers what's hidden. That's my preferred definition. And what's the next idea? Let's take them in order.
Who is of the nature of bliss absolute.
Yes. So Swamiji used to say, find out who the Guru is. So in the beginning of my study with him, he was this brilliant man with the unpronounceable name, and it was hard to understand his accent. He looked like a king. He was so regal. Swamiji, so powerful. It was like being on LSD, being around him. Then what he said was so eloquent, so clear. But after a while, I learned this trick of being able to tune up to him, tune in. And once as us students began to do that, then he would kind of bring you in close. And he would say, use the Guru. Tune in to me anywhere. Be halfway around the world. Just think of me. And in time, I began to see that Swamiji wasn't the little man in the orange robes. That vast emptiness, that thunderous sigh, that deep, deep peace. Find out who the Guru is, you will find out who. So here Shankara just cuts right to it. We're not interested in Govinda Pada's heritage, where he was born, what he liked to eat, how big he was. Did he wear orange or white? Shankara knew he's the essence of this absolute. And I think the next idea is beyond the known instruments of perception.
Yeah, who is beyond the reach of the known instrument of perception.
Yeah. So how do we know the self? We don't see, hear, taste, touch, or smell. It's not an emotion. It's not a thought. Yet it's not unknown because it's my very self. You know who the Guru is, you will know. You realize the self in you. You realize the self in you. And that self is self-evident, self-shining, self-luminous. It is beyond the known instruments of perception by which we know the world. The next idea.
That was the last one.
Next verse.
Section 2, Glory of Spiritual Life. Jantu Nam Narajanma Durlabha Mata Pastatatvam Tato Vipritata Tasmad Vaidika Dharma Margaparata Vidvanta Masmanta Param Atmanatma Vivekachanam Swanubhavo Brahmyatmana Sansthiti Mur no Shata Janma Koti Sukritai Punyair Vidna Labhyate. For all living creatures, a human birth is indeed rare. Much more difficult it is to attain full manhood. Rarer than this is a sattvic attitude in life. Even after gaining all these rare chances, to have steadfastness on the path of spiritual activity as explained in Vedic literature is yet rarer. Much more so to have a correct knowledge of the deep significances of the scriptures. Discrimination between the real and the unreal, a personal experience of spiritual glory, and ultimately to get fully established in the living consciousness that the self in me is the self in all. These come only later on and culminate in one's liberation. This kind of a perfect liberation cannot be had without earned merits of 100 crores of lives lived intelligently.
So crore is what, 100,000?
10 million.
10 million. 10 million. 110 million. Now, what does it mean here? What does it mean to gain a human birth? Many people are walking around with two legs, driving a car, living in an apartment. They have the same motivations and desires that an animal has. Food, clothing, shelter, mating, children. Being head of the troop. So here it doesn't just mean that we've gone through the vegetable and the lower animals and the higher animals and now we're human. It means we are finally at a state of consciousness where we're beginning to ask questions. The Buddhists talk about this in the 6 skandhas, the God realm, the super God realms, the hell realms, the hungry ghost realm. All of these are states of mind. Sadhana only really takes place in the human realm. What is it to be human? I start to pay attention to my circumstances. I start to question values. Is this working? What's it all about? Maybe what I've been taught by society and family isn't true. That's what it means to be human. It means we can inquire. We can question. Swamiji used to say, blind faith is stupid faith. And it will fail us in a crisis. Useful faith is the result of having a scientific approach to our spirituality. Meaning, the scriptures will give us hypotheses. And we prove or disprove them. Laboratory of our own direct experience. So, this is what it means to be human. To attain to full manhood, you have to understand that every scripture is written in a cultural context. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Back in old-timey days, India was classist and sexist, just like European culture. We did not have a monopoly on stupidity. But what we can do is look for a more subtle understanding of it. Mystically speaking, a yang, a masculine temperament, means that we have more of the warrior spirit, more of the objective part of the mind is in use. The feminine side is the nurturing part, the more intuitive part of it. My opinion, yogi needs to have balance between the two. Have to be sensitive and intuitive, but you also have to be incredibly courageous. You're going to face things that are far scarier than an enemy with a gun. You're going to face your own mind. An eagle will say, "No, I don't want to look there. Scary." You gotta look all that stuff square in the face. So this is the deeper understanding of attaining to full manhood. What's the next idea?
Rarer than this is a sattvic attitude in life.
Yes. So later on, we'll talk about the three gunas, tamas, rajas, and sattva. Tamas basically is a dull intellect that's covered in ignorant and deluded. A rajasic mind is one that is under the throes of craving and desire and ambition. It's a reactive mind by and large. But after practicing many of the moral injunctions of Scripture, one of the good places to look is the yamas and niyamas of Raja Yoga. I was reading one commentary that says basically the root of them all is ahimsa. Who can tell me what ahimsa is?
Non-violence or non-harming.
Yes. All the others proceed from that. Get fighting anyone and anything. So when the mind becomes purified through various practices, it attains a sattvic state. It's pure, it's clear, and it naturally will turn in. So I'll have a student and I'll ask him, well, have you meditated this week? Oh, Jim, I just couldn't get myself to do it. You know, I want to, but I'm just too busy. I just can't get myself to do it. Who's been in that state? There's still a lot of grudges in the mind. And I was talking with another student who has quit his job and he flew off to India and he's going to be there for several months to do sadhana. Sadhana. Next idea.
To have steadfastness on the path of spiritual activity as explained in Vedic literature.
Yes. So there are many, many paths out there, and many people just add the word spiritual and they can justify almost anything. I'm doing ayahuasca this weekend. It's spiritual. So we're doing red tantra. Getting naked. We're going to do eye gazing. Be all sensuous with one. Knock yourself out. I'm into manifesting. I'm going to study that and manifest things so I can get the boyfriend, get the girlfriend, get the car, get the job. I'm really good at manifesting. Knock yourself out. None of those is the spirituality that's explained to us in the Vedic literature, which has as its goal realization of the self. Now, many people come to the spiritual life because of a crisis. They may have had a terrible illness and survived it. They may have had a terrible breakup of a marriage or a relationship. And they come to the spiritual life. They may have lost their fortune or their business. They begin to question. This is very common. There's nothing wrong with this. But frequently, once your life starts to work again a little bit, guess what happens to your sadhana? On a back burner. I'm too busy enjoying the benefits of the sadhana I used to do. To do more sadhana. So we're not steadfast. I have no trouble telling people I am a crappy yogi. All sorts of turns and not followed directions and done this and done that over the years. But I have been steadfast. I had 7 years of metaphysics, and in 1975 I met Swamiji. That's 48 years ago. I've been doing Vedanta sadhana for 48 years. Steadfast. And who was the fellow who said 90% of life is just showing up? That Peter Sellers or something? Somebody like that. But it's true. If we keep on keeping on, results will happen. Give up, don't get discouraged. The neat thing about being a yogi, all we have is today to do sadhana. Oh, I don't have to do sadhana today. I did twice as much yesterday. It doesn't work that way. Today I do sadhana. And if I get up and I start off being identified and reactive and have a terrible morning, and by noon I go, oh God, no, I need to sit and meditate, let it all go. Remember what the truth is. You can start your day over with sadhana at any point. But the cool thing is, the only sadhana I can do is today. In the past. And these todays will mount. Next idea.
Much more so to have a correct knowledge of the deep significances of the scriptures.
Yes. So many of us get literalistic with the scriptures. We don't realize what's important and what's ancillary. We interpret them through our own mind state. I can remember I was at a camp up at Krishnali, up in Humboldt County, with Swamiji, and he used to, or the mission used to hire local people to come and work in the kitchens and do housekeeping and stuff like that. Be a couple hundred people there at the camp. And there was this one gal who was in ISKCON, the International Krishna Consciousness Movement, Hare Krishnas. And one of the things that the mission said is if you were on staff and working for the camp, you could attend any of the classes, free of charge, no problem. So just free. There was this one gal, and she was this Hare Krishna. And so we invited her, well, come here, Swamiji, come here, Swamiji. And she says, oh, no, I can't. I'm a woman. Women aren't allowed to hear the Vedanta. Now, there's probably a section of the Vedas that says something like that. Just like in the Catholic Church, there used to be a time when women couldn't go on the high altar, the sanctuary. It's nonsense. So you've got to be able to separate the wheat from the dross here and see what's really important. There are scriptures, for example, that deeply talk about astrology. We've had these conversations. A lot of people, well, if I'm going to marry so-and-so, we got to go to an astrologer to see if our charts match. Let me go to an astrologer to see if I'm supposed to do sadhana. Nonsense. Next idea.
Discrimination between the real and yantric.
Yeah. So to be able to tell the difference between the self and the non-self, the subject and all the objects, between the eternal and the impermanent, only be done in a very subtle way. Now, another thing that can stand in our way, many people enter the spiritual life and they think they want to know God, they want to know the self, they want liberation. They really have other motives, which are largely unconscious. One of the biggest is community. I want to join this group so I can be around other like people. I'll meet friends. I might even meet a boy or a girl. So we always need to check out our motives. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But the fruits come if your motive is pure. What I want is the Lord. I tell people self-realization is not difficult. And Krishna says that in Gita. Easy to perform. It's very, very rare. It's rare because nobody wants it. We say we want it, but I want the world. Next idea.
The personal experience of spiritual glory.
Yes. So the scriptures make a distinction between what we call paroksha jnanam, indirect knowledge, the knowledge of the pundit, the knowledge of the scholar. I've read all the commentaries, and more than that, I've watched YouTube. And I have the rap down, the God rap. And I can go to a cocktail party and impress my friends with my knowledge of the Vedanta. Here Shankara says, paroksha jnanam, indirect knowledge. And there's aparoksha jnanam, direct experience. Swamiji used to say, you can read a textbook about electricity. But if I take the shade off the lamp, unscrew the light bulb, then I know electricity. Don't settle for less. And we can have, as it were, glimpses into the infinite. It can happen in meditation. It can happen here in class. Should happen here in class. You have direct experience. Oh yeah, I get it. It's me. There's nothing there. But that's not yet what we call sthita, steady wisdom. But if I have glimpses into the infinite, at least now I have something real with which to work. So here he says, an experience of spiritual glory of my own nature. Not that I'm an enlightened person now. No. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Or as Shankara will say in Nirvana Shatakam, Chidananda Rupaham, Shivoham, Shivoham. My form is bliss consciousness. And Shiva. Suspicious. Next idea.
And ultimately, to get fully established in the living consciousness that the self in me is the self in all.
Yes. So we become rooted in knowledge. It's not just knowing I am that heartless Brahman, but then seeing the self in and through all the objects of the world. Most of you have heard me quote one of my favorite mantras from the Chandogya Upanishad. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Sarvam Idam. All this. Kalu. Verily. Brahman. It's all God. And then the final thought.
These come only later on and culminate in one's liberation.
So here he's laid out the process that we go through. Encapsulation. Any thoughts before we go on?
A quick thought or comment,
Please.
sorry. Just how when you talked about the electricity when you touch it, is there like a metaphor for when you realize the self? Because when you touch the electricity, this is a stupid question. When you touch electricity, you almost die, right? Because you're like,
You don't die from self-realization.
I know, but maybe the ego dies.
It does.
In that sense, you burn away that that, and then so you are killing something. Or
well,
not killing.
Yes and no. It's not that you kill something. It's you see through the vanity of something. Something that I thought was real, that I thought was true. I don't know. You grew up in this country, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Did you grow up believing in Santa Claus?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of young kids. How old are kids when they finally realize there's no Santa Claus? 5 or 6, maybe 7?
I think so.
Yeah.
17 for me.
I still believe in Santa Claus. But what happens? You come to see, oh, this was such a wonderful thing to believe in. And then finally I realized, oh, it's not true. There's no Santa Claus. I didn't have to kill Santa Claus.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? What happened? I saw that what I thought was something real and important and wonderful and magical just isn't true. So also, the mind comes to see this personal sense of self that I've been trying to protect and defend and improve, understand. It's not real. It's like Santa Claus. Now, is there fear as you approach that? Yes. For many people. People will go into meditation and things will start to dissolve and fear will come up. Who's had that in meditation? Very, very calm. And very frequently, as you begin to see what's real, there's just this deep, deep grief. Some of us have invested a whole lot into being a person. Don't you know who I am? And it's all not real. Job, my position, my career, everything by which I've identified myself is taken away.
Thank you. Yeah.
Very good question. Wendy, can I use some of your life as an example?
Sure.
So Wendy was a restaurateur, a famous, fancy one for decades in the area, had 2 restaurants, Rivoli, and what was the other one?
Corsa.
Corsa. And they died during COVID. Did you grieve?
Yes.
Yeah. Because it was a big part of your identity.
Huge.
Did you disappear though?
No.
That's what you learned.
I think I was just trying to draw an analogy of like when you're touching electricity, what that would be like when you touch, quote unquote, the self. Something is removed. I mean, yeah. When I get there, I'll
we
know.
find this in things like family. So you and I have talked a lot about family. If we see our role in the family is maybe to take care of someone or to rescue someone or something like that. A lot of us have these enmeshments. We've talked about that. And then when you see, I can't rescue anybody. Well, then who am I if I'm not a rescuer? What's my purpose in life without this? Well, you hold on to these roles. Or you and I have talked about how, how women are supposed to behave and not be, strong or assertive.
Mm-hmm.
And how you started to let drop all those things. It can also be enormously freeing. Has that been your experience?
Yeah.
I'm not going to play the little woman anymore. Let me find out how hard it is to let go of some of these things. But that's the process. Everything. We'll be the hole in the donut. Yeah. Very good question. All right. Are we done with this first?
There's one more last sentence. This kind of perfect liberation cannot be had without earned merits of 100 crores of lives lived intelligently.
Yes. So, earned merits, punya. So there's a very wonderful Zen slogan. Enlightenment happens by accident. Zen makes you accident prone. Is there a cause and effect relationship between our various practices and self-realization? Well, so and so seems to have gotten it so easily, and I've been working for 20 years. It's not that simple. We don't know where we are along this evolution. The rosebud is not a failure as a bloom. And if you try to rip the petals open to make the bud bloom, you just destroy it. And which is more beautiful, the first bloom of the summer or the last? Each blooms in its own perfect time. So it's of no value to compare ourselves to other people. Especially spiritually. We can look at our own progress, not from one day to another. Oh, my meditation was so terrible today. It was so much better yesterday. Oh, I must be progressing. I got really quiet today. Don't worry, it'll pass. But over a period of time, 6 months or a year, are you more peaceful? Are you less reactive in the world? Are you kinder? Are you more generous? Do you have a deeper intuitive sense of the grace of God? These are ways to measure it over a period of time. Any thoughts on this? All right, next verse. It does go faster, by the way. These first verses are pretty dense.
Section 3, Unique Graces in Life. Durlabham trayame vaita vena dvevanugraha hetukam manushyatvam mumukshutvam mahapurusha sanshrayah. Manhood, burning desire for liberation, the capacity to surrender completely to a person of wisdom. These three things are rare indeed, and wherever they are found, they are due to the Lord's own grace.
Yes, Guru Kripa, the Lord's grace. So let's pull it apart. Again, this manhood, this is not about your plumbing. This is more about the warrior spirit. Because things like fear and attachment will be seen for what they are, and for us to be able to face what we call our kleshas. Klesha means an affliction, our doshas, our defects of character. This takes courage. This is the warrior spirit. So that's how I invite you to look at this idea. And what's the next idea after manhood?
Burning desire for liberation.
Mumukshutva. As I said earlier, main reason people do not attain self-realization because they don't want it enough. Swami Tejomayananda tells a story which I like. So the Swami goes to bhiksha, dinner, a meal at a family, a household. And as is customary, at least in the mission, after dinner, there's a thali with a bunch of fruit on it, and inside in it there's an envelope, there's a check in there. Give it to the Swami. Swami takes the check, puts it in his pocket, and takes the food, and Prasad gives it back. And the householder says, "Oh, Swamiji, you've done such a great thing. You've given up the world." The Swami pranams, gets down and touches the householder's feet. And the householder says, "No, no, 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 Swamiji," pulls him up. And the Swami says, "Oh no, you are the greater renunciate. I've given up the world, but you've given up infinite bliss." So as long as my mind is still telling me that happiness is out there, I will be attached to the world. Now, what we fail to realize when we head down that path is that worldly happiness and worldly suffering are the same thing. I promise you. If you get attached to anything in the world that brings you joy, you will suffer. Why? Because everything in the world is impermanent. And it's always changing. And if it does hang around for a while, your mind changes. Who here has fallen in love, had a long-term relationship or a marriage, and then broke up? What? What happened? Weren't you in love? It changed. They changed, you changed, it changed. And a successful couple that stays married for decades, they must continue to change and grow. Like women. Nothing in this world is perfect. But it can take us a long time to get out of denial. To see. Then the yearning for freedom gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Next idea.
The capacity to surrender completely to a person of wisdom.
Oh, this is a good one. And again, a lot of people have all sorts of weird ideas. So let me tell you what not to look for. Someone who wants your money, someone who wants to have sex with you. Most dangerous, really. Someone who wants to micromanage and control your life. You've come across a teacher who has those qualities, any of them, run the other way. Now, our problem is we are looking for daddy. Life is too hard and I can't manage. I want a daddy. Meaning I'm looking for someone to take care of me. And the guru will be an incarnation of love. but you're more likely to get roasted in the fire. I had friends who had gurus who were telling them what to do, and they'd spend all this money on this workshop and that workshop. And Swamiji, you couldn't buy it. He says the Vedanta can't be bought, it can't be sold. It's outside of the marketplace. And I'd spend time with him and I'd say, Swamiji, what do you want me to do? Run my life, run my life, run my life. I have no desire. I'd get so frustrated. Till I realized he was telling me what to do all the time. Discriminate between the real and the unreal. Give up my stupid attachments. Watch my mind. Meditate. Meditate. Learn to tune up the mind so it can abide. In the end, the real surrender is only our capacity to just drop the mind, go where the Buddha used to say, meet me there. You and I want to argue, we get in our heads. All these opinions. So to have this special trick of being able to surrender to a woman or a man of wisdom, great gift. Nothing to do with giving them all your money or having them micromanage your life. Next idea.
These three things are rare indeed, and wherever they are found, they are due to the Lord's own grace.
Yes. So, again, grace is not capricious. We invoke grace through our own purushartha. Purushartha means our own self-effort. In Gita, Krishna says a person raises themselves into the self by themselves. We do the work. And I promise you this. It's a maxim you find in the literature. When the student is ready, the guru appears. It's just part of the laws of life. All right, next verse.
Section 4. Miseries of the unspiritual man. Labdhva katham chinna rajama janma durlabham tatrapi pustatvam shruti paradarshanam yasatvatmam uktau nayateta mudadihi sahyatmaha swamvihi hantya sadagrahat. Is there a man who, having somehow gained a human embodiment, and there having a masculine temperament, and also a complete knowledge of the scriptures, is foolish enough not to strive hard for self-realization? He verily commits suicide clinging to things unreal.
Yes. Meaning, many of us have this great opportunity but because of our attachment to the world, we squander. Go after the cash and prizes, the things of this world. We miss the opportunity to find the peace that passes all understanding, the pearl of great price, the kingdom that's not of this world. So many ways to frame it in life. Oh, I'll get to sadhana. I'm going to wait till I'm 50, then I'll do it. After I retire, then I'll do sadhana. Time like the present. Oh, time. One more.
Iti konvasti mudatma yastu swarte pramadhyati durlabham manusham deham prapya tatrapi paurusham. Is there a greater fool than the man who, having got the rare chance of a human birth, and thereto the masculine qualities of the head and heart, falls short in his efforts to rediscover himself?
Yes. Now, here we have another literary device. When Shankara repeats an idea in different words, he's saying, this is important. Pay attention. So he takes the same idea of the last verse and he just simply rephrases it here. Don't put it off. Don't waste this precious thing called your life. Now, actually, Krishna in the Gita says, this knowledge makes you master of this world and the beyond. Actually, living in this world as a yogi maximizes our happiness in the world. So there are material benefits to it. It's not like, oh, I'm going to suffer this lifetime so I can be liberated after I die. No. Shankara thunders, we want to be Jivan Mukta, liberated in this very body, in this very life, to maximize the quality of life. Very practical in the end. Very, very practical. Okay, we'll quit here. What verse are we on for next week?
Verse 6.
Okay, people can still continue to join. Little housekeeping stuff. There are ways to donate. It is the custom to do what we call Guru Dakshina, to make a donation. It is not required. We want your presence more than we want your money. You can leave money in the begging bowl, or you can do Venmo or PayPal. Zoomies, if we have anybody on Zoom who isn't familiar with that, maybe next week, Mark, we can put that in the chat or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. We have texts available. If there's anybody on Zoom, you can get the text through Amazon, also in the Kindle version. And we'll try to get the link smoothed out so that if people try to log on and we're unable to, we'll get it smoothed out. Any other thoughts or questions? It is a commitment. It's not a drop-in class. Of course, life happens. There will be times when you can't come. We will record them so you can get the content on YouTube. It will be posted. So you can make up the classes that you may miss on occasion. All right. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all.